knowledge meets the action. Welcome to the Empowerment Show, where we break down the barriers, helping you grow. Financial literacy, speaking truth to the power. Real conversation, changing lives by the hour. We inspire to change, yeah, we challenge the status quo. Sharing tools for building wealth, watching your seeds grow. Empower you to take control of your future. No more living in the past. We're the authors of the suture. Get ready, get set, let the movement begin. Because empowerment starts now. Let the light in.
Yeah, Ashe. What's happening, my brother? How you today?
Hotel, brother. I'm doing well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing chilling, man. Just sitting back and enjoying what I'm getting to watch with my ancestors. You know, we always have something grateful to say, so I'm just reaching out. I was checking out a movie with Gregory Hines, right? One of my favorite tap dancers, and I just came across something. I said, well, who did he like? And he happened to like these couple of cats, the Nicholas brothers. I'm sure you heard of them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And there was this particular movie, and it was called Jump and Jive. It was made in 1943. That's why I put it up there. You could see it running across the marquee. So I know it's not African American History Month, but as far as I'm concerned, every day should be African American history. So that's what we try to do. You know, you and I, we try to introduce some of our culture and some of our history to the people. So I'm going to give them a short little snippet real quick and let them know who the brothers were. I tell you, these guys were fantastic, man. I mean, I watched some of their old film. This particular film happened to also feature Cab Calloway. And, you know, that brother, I'm going to bring him later on one time or another. Maybe the next time we come on, I'll introduce him. You know, we have a lot of people with our history, and I give it the world because this is a contribution to the world that have contributed so many things. Like they talk about Fred Astaire, and Fred Astaire, after watching this movie, he said this was the greatest dancing that he has ever witnessed. You know, so that says a lot from a cat like Fred Astaire. Politrics got some things going on. Have you ever heard of the CI-12?
I can't say that I have.
They're a counterintelligence group or operation. They're part of the federal government, if you want to say like the FBI. About a week or two before this attack, Kash Patel fired all of them. So these are the people that will let you know what's going on about Iran and all the different situations around the world as far as they do the espionage and all that good stuff. Kash Patel fired all of them. All of them. And then we end up here in Iran, which we should not even be in Iran. I don't even know why they're there. Well, I do. I think it's because of Israel. I think this is Trump paying penance to Israel, because I didn't see an imminent threat. And as far as the nuclear is concerned, they've been talking that how many years? I mean, year after year after year. These guys were supposed to, within a couple of months, have this capability to send rockets over here to the United States and blow up and kill everybody. And first it was a couple of months, then maybe 12 months. But they were saying this, man, 15 to 20 years ago. They were
30
saying the
years
same
ago,
thing.
actually.
So how long?
30 years ago.
Yeah, well, how long does it take them to build this bomb?
Well,
And the other countries now they don't have a right to defend themselves either, right?
well, there's a couple of things going on. Yes, this war is more about Israel than America. Most people, most sane people will tell you that Iran posed no imminent or immediate threat to this country in any way, form, or fashion, right? Um, you know, the media is trying to shape it that Iran was spoiling for a fight, and that's definitely not the case. It's never been the case. And if you go back into history, going back to probably, I guess, late 1960s, early 1970s. Matter of fact, let's go back to the genesis of this problem.
Yeah.
Iran, like it is today, was an oil-rich nation that was controlled by the British. British Petroleum was reaping most of the profits from Iranian oil. In Iran, they elected a prime minister by the name of Mohammad Mossadegh. He looked at the situation in Iran and saw his people were poor and that the wealth of the country was leaving, going to Europe and to places like America. So he decided that he wanted to renegotiate these deals that they had with British Petroleum. Well, of course, nobody's listening. He went to the United Nations, made a speech outlining his plight. And of course, the United Nations works, it works for one people and one people only. And those are Europeans. Well, eventually he nationalized the oil fields. Well, a man by the name of Kermit Roosevelt, who was the grandson of Teddy Roosevelt, he engineered the first CIA coup that ousted President Mossadegh or Prime Minister Mossadegh. Then what they did, the US and the British installed a man by the name of Reza Pahlavi, who we today now know as the Shah of Iran. The Shah was a very repressive individual. He killed his own people. Well, the mainstream media during that time didn't report on the killings that the Shah and his secret police were committing because it was US government sanctioned terrorism. Now, years later, they want to talk about what is happening or what was happening with the leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei. Well, all of this started, like the hostage taken in 1979. All of this was because the Iranians, these young people, were tired of being basically third-class citizens in their own country. They were tired of a repressive regime that they knew was backed by the United States and therefore by Israel. They wanted to oust him. Well, since that time, Iran has been looked upon as being the aggressor, as being the state that sponsors terrorism, not Israel, not the United States, but Iran. When was the last time Iran invaded another country or bombed in another country?
They haven't.
How many times?
And you were talking about, I just don't want to, you talking about the Iran crisis because I know they keep going back to that. But the one thing that did take place during the Iran crisis is that they did let Black people go, African Americans. Those were like one of the first ones to let go because they felt as though they understood what it was to be oppressed. Just want to let that out.
They did. They did because they were being repressed by their government, just as the government was repressing Black people in this country. So, of course, they grew tired and they took out their frustrations not only on the US, but on the Ayatollah. on the Shah. That's why he had to flee. And eventually he ended up in this country. And of course, when he was of no longer use, to the U.S. government. He was deathly ill. I believe he had cancer. They wouldn't allow him to be treated in U.S. hospitals. This is from a man that for years repressed his own people, killed his own people at the behest of the United States. Think about this. Saddam Hussein was an ally of the United States. He went to war with Iran against his own Muslim brothers and sisters because the U.S. told him to. The U.S. and Israel told him to go to war with his own people, and he did that. Years later, Saddam Hussein became the madman. Saddam Hussein was eventually killed on live television. In Libya, you had somebody by the name of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi.
Yep.
Killed on live TV. A man who posed no threat to the United States. On this side of the Atlantic, we had a man by the name of
posing, but you know the threat that he was putting in play is that he was trying to unite Africa, and we know that anytime one of us try to unite anything or try to bring us together to form some sort of coalition, they label us as a terrorist. I mean, look at Ibrahim Traore right now. You know,
well, there was two things that he wanted to do, and Saddam Hussein wanted to do this also. Muammar Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein were talking about a gold-backed currency, and that would have basically destroyed the value of the American dollar. So because of that, both of these world leaders had to be taken out, because right now, one of the things that America is fighting against is the BRIC, right? A new gold-backed currency that is Russia, India, China, Brazil, and a few other countries. Well, now India is beginning to pull out, but there are a number of countries that are remaining and backing this new form of currency that will rival the US dollar as the world reserve currency. Well, how do you force these countries and stop them from producing this currency? You can't at this point. So, you know, we've gone to war to prevent this from happening and to control resources like oil and others. But at this point, we're not going to be able to stop the development or the release of that form of currency. But what's happening right now in Iran, so about a week or so ago, Marco Rubio went before the European Union, and he basically said, we need to recolonize the world. And the European allies gave him a standing ovation. Well, if you look at what's happening in Iran, initially, England said, no, you cannot use our bases to attack the Iranian people. Well, Keir Starmer changed his tune and is allowing the U.S. to use the base to attack in Iran. So this is all more for show than to say, yes, we understand the assignment, and the assignment is to go to war with what's called the Global South and to recolonize the earth and to reestablish our power for years to come, to maintain white supremacy, to maintain Western European and American hegemony. That's
so like
what this is about.
Like Israel, you know, this is what I've heard constantly over and over again, that Israel has the right to defend themselves. So Iran doesn't have the right to defend themselves as well, because after the U.S. hit first, this wasn't Iran who struck us. This wasn't a threat to us. They didn't do anything. They didn't do anything to Israel as well. This was them striking Iran first. So Iran doesn't have the right to retaliate. They don't have the right to defend themselves.
Well, in that region, no one had the right to defend themselves except for the Israelis. And that is borne out by the fact that the only ones that possess uh, highly advanced weaponry in the region is Israel. Israel has the latest state-of-the-art jet fighters, missile technology, surveillance technology, all of that Israel possesses. Yet they understood that in order to successfully fight against the Iranians, they needed America's help. You have to understand, Iran is probably 3 times the size of Iraq. Iran has a population approaching 90 million people. And these people, many of them, probably the vast majority of them, supported the rule of the Ayatollah. So you have people who are dedicated to the now deceased or late Ayatollah, and who see America, as they say, as the great Satan, as the real threat to global peace and stability in the region, along with Israel, which in many instances, there's really no separation between Israel and the United States. In fact, here in this country, there are some states, some cities, where speaking out against Israel can lead to jail time. Not against our own government. You can speak out against our government, at least now you can. I don't know how long that will last, but I know in some sectors, if you speak out against Israel, you can be arrested. There are sanctions for speaking out against the Israeli regime.
They're quick to call you anti-Semitic and you're racist and this, that, and the other, and it just on and on and on, man. I just don't understand how is it that Israel became so powerful in this country?
Well, you have to understand that, well, if you look at the back of an American dollar, right, you see a eagle, and above the eagle is a circle, and inside that circle is a shape, and that shape is the Star of David. So in terms of the Federal Reserve, which is a privately owned bank which prints our money, all of the chairpersons of the Federal Reserve have been Jewish. So basically, Israel, or people who support Israel, have been in control of the U.S. economy for more than a century. And maybe you may remember this. When George H.W. Bush was president, and of course, he was Reagan's vice president, not Reagan's choice, but Reagan's vice president. Reagan was one of the most popular Republican presidents this country's ever known. So for Bush, it wasn't a problem for him to get elected. Well, halfway through his term, Israel asked for $10 billion in loan guarantees to build settlements along the West Bank. Bush at the time said no. All of a sudden, the U.S. economy began to tank. In 1992, a little-known governor from Arkansas, of all places, managed to beat the very powerful Bush family and gain control of the White House. Now, how does the governor of Arkansas, of all places, beat an established political powerhouse like the Bush family? Where did all the money come to back his campaign?
APAC, CPAC, one of those packs,
Absolutely.
Let me ask you a question.
Bush out. Mm-hmm.
Right. This is a question that's been on my mind for quite a while. So the people that are in Israel now, they call themselves Jews. I got you. But aren't these people that are there now, they're not from that region. They're not from that land. They're actually from Europe and the different countries in Europe after the World War. Didn't they all? These were the Jews that were the German Jews, the Jews that were in Poland, the Jews that were in Hungary. And what I'm saying is that these are all the European Jews, but they're not originally Israelites.
They are not.
They can't.
You're correct. First of all, you have to
Oh man,
understand that
I lose you.
Israel was not ever a place, it was a person. According to the biblical story, a man by the name of Jacob wrestled with an angel all night that the angel would bless him. And in the morning, that angel said that you will no longer be called Jacob, you will now be called Israel. So Israel was never a place, it was a person. They claim, the people in Israel now claim to be descendants of Jacob, who later became Israel. But if you go back and you do a little historical research, even a little biblical research, there are many questions that arise that challenge who they are. In fact, if you go into, I think it's the book of, I think it's Numbers, where they talk about those people who begat who, you come across the name Ashkenaz. And many of the Eastern European Jews are Ashkenazi Jews. If you do a little research and on where is modern day Ashkenaz, the answer is Germany, not Israel, Germany. And there's a book called The Empire of the Khazars, and it details a group of people who lived in basically the steeps of the Caucasus Mountains, who had established an empire. Group of pretty wild individuals who decided they did not want to be Christians, nor did they want to be Muslims. So they decided that they were going to now become Jews. There is no historical record of them going back beyond the 6th century. None. You cannot find one. So from the 6th century to modern day, they have created this ideal that they are the chosen people, and that because of that, they have a God-given right to the land that they call Israel and to control the peoples around them because God gave them that right. That is no different than in this country where you say we have the same right under the concept of manifest destiny to control this country from sea to shining sea. That we had the right to kill or basically, I guess, incarcerate the indigenous people by putting them on reservations, right? That's all right because, you know, we are the people that God gave the knowledge and the strength and the ability to control this country, to take it as our own. No difference than what Israel is doing in what's called the Middle East.
You know, with that, I got a hypothesis. It's just my own opinion. So let me ask you. So when did the year of the Gypsy? When did that end? Did that end the same time as the year of that these Jews started popping up in Europe? Because I think you see the Gypsies, they used to wander everywhere, and everybody hated them. That nobody liked them, right? That's what they went from town to town to town to town. They seem to experience the same thing as the Jews have been experienced. So I think this is just my hypothesis. I think that they took on the Jewish religion as a way of hiding themselves from being a gypsy. That's just my hypothesis. Maybe true, may not. You know, that's just it's just funny. Like where did the gypsies go?
Well, the gypsies, we call them gypsies here. In Europe, they were called Roma. I think because they were from the area of countries like Romania, and they inhabited that region. But I think the problem with them was they would not really accept the Catholic religion, which was the dominant religion throughout Europe, probably from about the 4th century on, after the establishment of the Holy Roman Empire, or also known as the Catholic Church. So you had Europeans running around Europe lopping off each other's heads under the guise of establishing the true religion. So if the religion is true, why you have to cut off somebody's head to prove it? But
Right.
that's what was going on in Europe, and Roma and some of the other tribes would not accept Catholicism. You had people like the British fighting the people in Ireland for 800 years, right? Over the concept of religion. And you had, prior to that, in Ireland,
And the irony of that war, weren't both of them supposed to be Christians? The Irish, and weren't they both Christians?
Well, you had the English that were Protestant, and you had the Irish that were Catholic. And because of that, they had this ongoing conflict. It wasn't really about religion, it was about control, it was about land.
There you go.
But just like right now, today, this war that we find ourselves engaged in is not about religion, it's not about terrorism, it's about control, it's about power. If Iran can be brought to heel, in a sense, if Iran will give up its weapons, if Iran will agree to allow, like so many other Middle Eastern countries, to allow the existence of Israel, then of course everything is fine, right? But if Iran will continue to fight, understanding that, look at what's been happening to the Palestinians since 1948. How many Palestinians have been killed? How much land has been taken from the Palestinians, right? They live on what's called the Gaza Strip, a small strip of land. I think it's 25 or 26 square miles. That's it. 2 million people. So the Iranians and the rest of the world look at this and they realize, right, that this isn't just about Gaza. This is about what's called Eretz Israel, or the expansion of Israel. Because, of course, Israel has more and more, they have a growing population, they have people that they want to come back to Israel. Because of that, they need more land, more sources of fresh drinking water.
You know what? I wonder if they're going to use that old adage of they have the right from God to do so.
Oh, they always do.
They say they did what they did because they had the right of God. God chose them as the chosen people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And all right. The Bible, of course, contradicts that. Okay.
All right. We got to take a quick one, and then we'll be right back. All right.
Okay.
A doctor's calling. A company's mission. United for a greater good. When Edmark International, the pioneers of wellness, joined forces with Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire, naturopath, the world gained a new weapon in the fight for true health. Co-created, science-backed, nature-powered. This isn't just a product. This is a movement. Born from decades of groundbreaking research, naturopathic mastery, and Edmark's relentless innovation.
The body wants to heal itself, and we have just given it the ultimate toolkit.
A detox unlike any other. A partnership unlike any other. The future of health starts now.
Yeah, we're going to have an opportunity soon. She's been texting me that she'd like to come back on the show. So just she wants to see how people have been reacting to the Trinity. I mean, I tried it. It's detox. You know what detox means. I mean, I'm gonna clean you out. And, it cleans you out. It cleans you out, but it gives you a little pep to your step, if you want to say. It's not just like a cleansing. They also have different vitamins and foods that you take along with it. So it gives you that little extra boost too. So it's not bad. Not a bad product. So we're back here on the other side. I wanted to talk about Iran again, since we were in that area, and I'll tell you about them fighting back. So now they're considered to be the big terrorists because they're stopping all the ships from coming in and taking oil. They're stopping it. That's going to kill us over here with our oil prices. The gas prices are probably going to shoot up after that, man. I wanted what do they call it? The Iran Straits of
The
Hormuz?
Strait of
Yeah.
Hormuz. Yeah.
So what do you what's your take on that?
Well, the Strait of Hormuz has always been a vital waterway. I mean, going back to when Reagan was president, um, the Iranians were talking about blocking the Strait of Hormuz. See, you and I are old enough to remember the oil embargo in the 70s, right?
Oh yeah.
When you
Oh
had to
yeah.
get gas on odd and even days. It was because OPEC had cut production, right? During that time, you had more solidarity amongst the Middle Eastern countries. Now, let me just say something about the Middle East as a whole. The Middle East is a made-up term. They don't want to call it what it is.
Africa.
Right now, yes, it is. See, you can walk from Israel straight into Africa, right into Egypt. If you cross through the Rafah crossing, you are in Egypt. They tell you that the Middle East is part of Asia. Since when do Asia and Africa come together and the continents touch? Where? Does not exist anywhere on the planet, right? This is just a made-up term because it does not keep in line with the paradigm that they are the chosen people. If you go back and you read the Bible, it says that when Noah and his family, when the ark came to rest, it said that his two eldest sons, Ham and Shem, went south and they established cities like Mizraim, Punt, and Ethiopia. So we're talking about Cush, Egypt, and Ethiopia. And it says his brother Shem lived in neighboring cities. So their whole, their progenitors, the people that supposedly started this whole covenant with God, were Africans. So rather than admit that, they created a whole new region that they call the Middle East. But this is just all Northeast Africa. And it's always been.
You know, we had that brother on, was it last week, week before? We were discussing, talking about Africa, and he was telling us about what was going on in Africa. One of the things that we did talk about is that we never named it. We never gave that name to ourselves. That was not our name. This is a name that the colonials gave us, right? The Greeks, if you want to say, the Greeks and the Roman. So I'm saying to say that even with the Middle East, we didn't name that. Somebody else named that. These are people coming into an area, colonizing the area, and then creating all these borders to create separation between the tribes, because we were more I guess tribe. We had our tribes. It wasn't. We didn't have any borders. It was one land, one massive land. See, so they came in with these borders, and they put these borders up. Now in the Middle East, they considered them to be Arabic, Muslim, Islamic. So the Christians came in with the war. Remember that, the Christian Crusades. And if you didn't want to become Christian, they cut your head off, kill you, rape you, kill your family, the whole nine, burn down your cities. So maybe that's where it's coming from, partially.
Well, you're talking about the Crusades, right? And the Crusades is interesting because they make it seem like it was just one war, right? One battle, when actually there were 9 crusades, right? 9 campaigns to drive what the Christians at the time called the infidels out of the Holy Land. Well, this wasn't about religion. This was about controlling the lucrative trade routes between Europe and Africa. That's what this was really about. Once Europe was raised by the Moors, right? Now you have the Catholic Church on the rise. The Catholic Church is saying, they're recognizing, we're bottled up in Europe while these other countries have these lucrative trade routes that are making enormous sums of money. We have to control those trade routes. This was not about looking for some holy grail or the burial place of God. This was about money. This is about power.
Mhm.
You know,
Isn't
the
it
Catholic
always?
Church. Well, yeah, I mean, nothing really changes. You know, I wrote a piece the other day and I sent it to you called The Old World Order.
I read
And,
it. I read it.
you know, this is not a new world order. This is the same order that goes back centuries. The same group of people, the same cabal that has always tried to control the world. Their descendants now are trying to recolonize the world. And they're doing it, right? You know, like I said, Marco Rubio goes before the European Union and they're giving him a standing ovation because they understand the assignment. We're not going to conduct, we're not going to fight against each other. We're going to attack places like Iran. We're going to capture presidents like Nicolas Maduro. Eventually, they're talking about going after Cuba. They're going to go after parts of Africa, right? I pray for my brother, Traore, and so many others from the Sahel nations, right? That they can get together and they can bring in other African countries that will support them in the fight that is definitely going to come. Because Africa is key. The resources that they've used to establish their empires in Europe came out of Africa, out of India, out of the Far East. And if they're going to maintain power, they have to have that level of control.
Well, I'd say like this, brother, because of reproduction, and then not exactly of people, even the Europeans, they're not reproducing like they used to, and it's going to change anyway, man. So eventually it's going to change anyway. I wanted to ask you about, you heard of John Fetterman, right? The senator?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. What do you think about? To me, I think he's more of, what do we used to call those people? Dixiecrats. He seems to be more leaning that way because he seems to agree with pretty much everything that Trump says, and on and on and on and on. Yeah, he seems to go against the Democratic Party in all kind of ways, and he really speaks like with a forked tongue. What do you think of that, man?
I think that Fetterman is trying to position himself as a centrist, right? That he's not too far to the left, and yet he's not too far to the right. That, you know, he's a centrist and he can understand good policy from both sides of the aisle. However, this war in Iran is not good policy, not for the United States, right? Let's be realistic. Tupac Shakur said in one of his raps that you got money for war but can't feed the poor.
Feed the poor.
So in this country, what we have is a growing homeless class. We have working class and poor people being pushed to the brink. Rising taxes, rising food costs, rising fuel costs. Everything's going up except wages, right? So people are pushed to the brink. Trump said when he was elected the first time how foolish it is to be involved in these foreign entanglements. They have nothing to do with the American people. So much money and resources are wasted in these wars. And now you've bombed in Iran twice, and now you find yourself in what may become a protracted war in Iran. He bombed in Lebanon. He bombed in Syria. He bombed in Yemen. These are the things he used to rail about when Obama did them, when Biden did them. Now, all of a sudden, it's okay. It makes perfect sense to slaughter people, you know, without justification. And there is none. So for Fetterman, I think he's trying to position himself for maybe higher office, right? He doesn't want to be seen as a... Well, I don't think so either. I don't think so either. Nope. But I think he's trying to position himself. I think that he doesn't want to be seen as what the Republicans call the radical left. I think he wants to position himself as someone, who is a centrist, who can pull votes from both the Democrats and Republican parties. I don't
Hey,
think that
let me
it's
ask
going to
you,
work for him.
wasn't Jesus? Wasn't Jesus? Wouldn't he be considered to be a radical?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely. So you know what
So
I'm going to do?
so
I'm going
would
to go to
Dr.
the same
King.
church. Right. I'm going to go to the same church that Jesus go to. I can't hang with somebody that wants to sit in the middle of the fence. You got to make up your mind. Fetterman's trying to sit in the middle of the fence, then he really is not the type of person that I want to be with, because he doesn't know where he wants to be. He's just going along to get along. And whoever is the top dog, that's who he's going to be on his side. Like with Trump, he just agrees with so many things. He agrees with so many things of Trump's policies, the immigration, the ICE, all of that nonsense. He agrees with all of it, and I just can't. I don't see yourself being a Democrat and say that you're for that kind of stuff. Look, I'm down with, let's get rid of illegal immigration. Okay. But the people, they done got rid of so many immigrants from this country. Those people, they were paying the taxes here. I mean, billions of dollars worth of tax is gone now. And then you got people like this Gnomes. She's in charge of DHS, right? Homeland Security Department. And she's making commercials personally, her face on the commercial, spending what was it, a $500 million that she's spending on these commercials. Look at all the money that they're spending on ICE. Here we go. We got money for wars, but no money to feed the poor.
Yeah. Kristi Noem was being questioned by Congress today, and I looked at just a snippet of it. And as usual, she's being combative. But you have to understand something, right? For me, there's not a lot of difference between the two sides of the aisle. Because realistically, Congress has the purse strings. According to the Constitution, Congress has the purse strings. Congress could have cut off DHS a long time ago, before people started to be killed, before people started to suddenly just disappear. The funding could have been cut off. Kristi Noem had the nerve to say that, there are laws in this country. Yes, Mrs. Noem, there are laws. And the fact is, you breaking a hell of a lot of U.S. laws. And you have the nerve to say that these people who crossed the border, you say illegally. Well, I'd like to ask Secretary Noem, well, how did your people get into this country? The indigenous people were here. When your folks arrived, did they sign your passport? Did they issue you a visa?
So who's the true foreigner?
So how did you get here?
Who's the true foreigner here in this land?
Exactly.
Who's the real foreigner?
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Exactly.
Right on.
Who's the real illegal immigrant?
And let's utilize their term. Who's the illegal alien?
Right.
That's the term.
Who is it really?
They like to call them aliens. All right.
Who is it really? Yeah.
I got one more thing since we were talking about that. The investigators down in Minnesota, the prosecutors are finally trying to bring these officers that did the shooting. They're trying to reel them in and get them. So they started an investigation against the two federal officers, including the Border Patrol. Now, my thing is, it's Minnesota. They border what? So why do we have Border Patrol there? I mean, is Minnesota right next to Mexico or something?
Well, you know what? They wanted to augment the force. So the U.S. military strategy is always to use overwhelming force against your enemy. And that's the prevailing thought with DHS, to use overwhelming force, right? To put down or quell the protest, right? To go out and do this job, which I'm not sure exactly what the job is, because You said you're getting Trump said we're going to get rid of the worst of the worst. Well, if you wanted to get rid of the worst of the worst, Mr. Trump, you should self-deport, you and your family and those like you, right? Then we'll get rid of the worst of the worst and we'll see how we go from there. But, one of the things that Senator Klobuchar of Minnesota asked Secretary Noem is, do you think it was right that ICE agents kicked open a man's door, brought him out in his underwear in sub-freezing temperatures, and detained that man for hours when the man had proof he was a U.S. citizen, but they refused to look at his ID. Then they came to the realization that the person they had been looking for was already in jail and had been there for years. So why were you in this man's house to begin with? Secretary Noem would not say it was wrong. She said, we're doing our job. Yeah. Breaking into the home of Americans, is that your job? Is that what you have been appointed to do? If that's what you think, you clearly don't understand your role or the U.S. Constitution.
We can go back to Eleanor Bumpers. Remember that situation?
Oh, yeah.
Cop kicked in the door, shotgun, boom. I mean, for us, we can go from situation to situation. And we can bring it up to Breonna Taylor, right? The police wrong place. They weren't supposed to be there. And the guy that they was after, that wasn't his place of residence. But they, the woman ended up losing her life. And what happened to the police officers? Nothing. Just like I believe now, what's going to happen?
On the wrist.
Yeah, I don't even think it's going to be a slap on the wrist. A slap on the wrist to them is they put them on paid leave. Now, that means if you're a police officer, what's that mean for you? I'm getting ready to take vacation. I'm out.
Pretty much.
So I'm just who's going to pay for all of this? You know who's going to pay for all of this? Us, the American people, as we've been doing year after year after year, century after century, because the powers that be. And it's starting to seem like that old movies I used to see where the corporations are taking over everything. And it's kind of starting to seem that way, that the corporations are going to run everything. You remember the movie RoboCop, right? The big police and everybody was all about the corporation. And that kind of seems like where we're headed to. And eventually the bridge is going to break because everybody's not going to be down with that corporate ideology.
We know what? We're not headed there. We are there. If you can remember when we were kids, just about every sports arena was named after a person or after a location. Everyone now is named after a corporation.
Right.
If you look at a professional sports uniform, somewhere on that uniform is a corporate logo. So the corporations have taken over long ago. We're just catching on to it, right? The problem is that Americans, because we're so divided, because we're so left or right, not realizing they're one party.
White or black, yeah.
Right. Because we're so divided along those lines, right? It takes us a while to catch on to what's happening. The problem is, because of that hesitation, that lapse, things only get progressively worse. And right now, there are a lot of people who voted for Trump 3 times, right? Who are now saying, what the hell is this guy doing? What about the promises you made, Mr. Trump? What about no more foreign wars at our expense? And now you're embroiled.
See, the one thing about these corporations, just like they have lawyers and stuff like that they can afford, that they can always get, they can fight somebody with lawyers. They also have a good marketing machine. They have a hell of a marketing machine, and they can utilize that marketing machine to put out a lot of propaganda. They control a lot of the media. They control even this social network that we're on. They control what's going to be put on there. So they have a way of influencing people. Okay? And this is how Trump is getting over, because these people are saying one thing about Trump, to make him out like a hero. Maybe even might even be telling him that in his ear how great he is and how great the economy is. And you know what was that old fable story with the kid, the king has no clothes, and everybody walked around and said, "Oh, how great he looks," and so forth. Well,
the emperor's new clothes.
Right, the emperor's new clothes, and it seems like that's what we have. We have an emperor, and he ain't really got no clothes on, but he's being controlled by the corporation. Because if you think about it, how much influence do the Jews have here in the corporations?
Well, you have to keep in mind, right, that Trump ran as being the anti-elitist, that he was not part of the established elite. But look at what he is doing right now. Is it benefiting the average working class American, or is it benefiting the corporate elite? And that is something
my family didn't get $3 billion this year, like Trump's family is making. My family's not getting that. My family's not getting no jet planes that have beds in them and that have bedrooms included into the jet private planes. I'm not getting that. I'm not getting a trip to go over to check out the hockey team, getting a free ride over there. My girlfriend is not getting protected, or my wife's not being protected where they shouldn't be by the CIA. Money after money after money is being spent, but they keep telling us there is no money for us. They don't have enough money for education, so they want to close down the Board of Ed. So they propagandize that and politicize education and tell you, well, education is no good, public schools are no good. So instead of us cleaning it up and fixing it up, we're taking that money and doing the right thing. We're going to throw out the baby and the bathwater, and we'll introduce you to charter schools and all these other schools that's going to cost us a lot of money. So I'm just saying, across the board, man, they're destroying us. Right.
Well, that's what the American people need to wake up and to see, right? There are so many of us that are still hell-bent on defending Trump, on defending the Republicans, or defending the Democrats, when the truth is, who's defending you? Who is representing you? The hard-working, everyday, average American who's struggling to put food on the table. Who's looking out for you? You're looking out for them. You're fighting their wars. You're paying the high taxes. You're paying the high cost of food and fuel and everything. That money goes into the pockets of the corporate elite. But who is defending you? Who's protecting you? Who's got your interests at heart? Some people say, well, it's the Republicans. Really? Some people say it's the Democrats. Really? Let's be realistic. What is the US dollar worth right now? What can you buy in this country with $1 US?
Not much anymore, because it's tax, and taxed again. So
you can't even buy a newspaper. You can't even buy a newspaper with a US dollar anymore. I looked at the Sunday Times.
Can't get a cup of coffee either. How about that?
You cannot. A cup of coffee. Right.
Remember when we were growing up? What did they have? You go to the store, and you remember you used to be able to get penny candy?
Absolutely.
Remember that? What happened to that? That's out the window.
I remember in junior high school, the guidance counselor would send me to the store. He would give me $2. He would tell me to get him a buttered roll, a cup of coffee, and a pack of Marlboro.
There you go.
With $2, and I would bring him change. Nowadays, a pack of cigarettes is averaging about $10. $10 for a pack. Yes. For one pack of cigarettes, $10. Right. It's insane.
But,
and yet they tell us they're looking out for us.
They're not looking out for us, man. They're looking out for each other. They're looking out to make money for themselves. They want to build this global world power of less than 100 people who want to control everything in the world, because that's what they're doing. They got us in a trick bag. They got us going after each other. We're dying. And then when we come back to find out why we were fighting these wars, we shouldn't have been in the first place. Why were we in Vietnam? And what did we accomplish?
Power. Nothing.
Nothing. We didn't
Not a damn thing.
Anything. Afghanistan, what did we doing there? What did we accomplish there? Nothing. Years and years of our people getting killed and dying. And what do we get for it? What would we gain for it? Not a thing. They tell people like you and I that we're going out here to fight for God. We're going out here to fight for country, and we have to be patriotic about it, right? And all they're doing is going and out stealing from us, man. We're just puppets. They're just using us to go and conquer somebody else, to kill people that look just like you and I.
Mm-hmm. And what makes it so bad is that the people who talk patriotism, who wave the American flag, who hug the American flag, never served in the military. Not
Hey, I
one
got one.
day.
Can you read the top of my hat? Can you see what it says?
Nope.
You can't? Really?
No. What does it say?
Well, it says that patriots believe it and veterans live it.
Right. Right. You
So that's
know,
where the
these
propaganda,
wars.
they get you to believe that nonsense. They got these people riding around, you see, with the Confederate flags, and they're against the people with the red, black, and green flags, and everybody's hating everybody, and they're going at each other, and the black people are segregated, so they're going at each other. They love this chaos. If we just united, like Huey P. Newton wanted us to do, if we just united as a people, and they wouldn't get away with this nonsense. They wouldn't.
Well, there is a
we would force them to abide by the laws, rules, and regulations that's laid out.
it is part of I think it's the second law of thermodynamics, and they say out of chaos comes order, right?
Right.
So the idea is to create chaos to get order. Why not just establish order? Why wait for chaos? So what's happening is Trump knows in order for him to stay in power, he's got to have chaos. He's got to keep people distracted, right? That's the only way someone like him can stay in power, to keep people fighting amongst themselves, keep them fighting for the crumbs that are falling off the table. But if these people ever wake up, now mind you, it was our own government that said, stay asleep. Don't get caught up in that woke stuff. That's not for you. You stay asleep and let us take care of you while you sleep. Take care of us. So you did a job of taking care of us, all right.
Yeah, we gave up a lot of freedoms for security. We're about at the end. So I want you to have a last word, because I usually have that last word, and I think it should be about you having the last word today, right on? Because you're very knowledgeable about what's going on. I am too, but you're the man, and you do it so eloquently. So I'm gonna leave that to you to close this out.
Well, thank you, brother. Since the big story is Iran, I think it's important to understand that you mentioned the Strait of Hormuz, vital waterway. Hundreds of millions of barrels of oil pass through the Strait of Hormuz. And I wrote this in my piece the other day. If there is a disruption in that flow of resources through that region, that could draw other people into this conflict. This is not going to be something that is going to go away in a matter of days. You know, we said that Vietnam will be over in 6 weeks or so, and it took 10 years. We went into Iraq and Afghanistan and stayed there for 20 years. The American people do not have the stomach nor the patience to deal with another long, protracted war that's going to send countless body bags home. I think that this is a major chink in the armor, or in Trump's armor. Even the MAGA base does not agree with this attack in Iran. They wanted to see change here in this country, and don't want to give much of a damn about change in Israel and in the Middle East. So folks, I just think it's important that you not look at this from the aspect of Fox News or CNN, which has just recently been bought and will be taken over by Trump loyalists. But I think that you need to look at it with fresh eyes and understand that this war is going to be disastrous economically and in terms of the human cost, just as they all are. We gain nothing by this war in Iran. This only benefits the wealthy elite in Israel. So, folks, stay awake, or as they say, stay woke.
Stay woke, brother. Ashe. Peace.
Ashe,
And we're out
brother.
of here.
Peace.